Okay, so you arranged this meeting in February, and I'm hopeful that you and the bishop get together and you figure out all this stuff, and you get your blog back and go back to being the great priest that your parishioners think you are, right? Or
because
still
of
way too hopeful.
their kind-heartedness. Uh, yeah, no, it didn't work out that way. Unfortunately, it was. Uh, I mean, we had a chance to talk. I apologize for having offended him, which I clearly had done. Um, and he said he didn't think that things went the way that he would have liked them to have gone either. And I appreciated him saying that. He and I talked, just the two of us, for a little while. And at the conclusion of that part of the conversation, I really thought, we're getting somewhere where
Hmm.
this could really turn out. We could take a step forward here. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Um, but then we went into part two of the meeting, which involved the vicar general and a couple of parishioners as well, and in which the bishop had a notebook which he said contained the blog posts to which he objected, with tabs marking the spots where he thought there was objectionable material. And he had that in front of him at the meeting in my office back in November, the same notebook apparently. And I'd asked if we could go through it then, and he refused to do so then. But he had it in front of him when he and I were together, and he said, "Well, let's go into the other room and we'll talk about this." And he had the notebook, and I thought, okay, now we're going to have our chance to have that talk that I had
Right.
hoped that we could have had a long time ago. But then we proceeded to have about 45 minutes of discussion in the boardroom, so to speak, of his office suite, with the vicar general and the two parishioners who had come with me, who he invited to speak and give their piece, and they both spoke, I thought, pretty eloquently about how they saw the situation. And then the second one of them said, "Can we please open this notebook and go through it and talk about the posts that you have a problem with?" And again, he said that was he wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And then he thanked them for coming, thanked us all for coming, and then issued his decision, which was that I was not going to have a blog anymore still, but that I could put my homilies on the parish websites. And then we left amicably, and then a journalist called me in the car to tell me that she had gotten a statement from the Diocese of Richmond about the meeting already. Um, and that went on, and this statement went on about how priests don't need blogs; they have other ways of communicating with their people. And
So
so,
are you indicating that statement that went to the press was already written prior to your meeting,
that was that.
or could it have been put together right after your meeting?
If it had been put together right after a meeting, I mean, they did it in record time. I mean,
Okay.
it's conceivably possible, but seems pretty unlikely.
Do you have a perspective on why the bishop did not want to talk about specifically that part of your blog? Because I'll give you the corporate perspective. I'm your boss. I don't like it. Stop doing it. I'm not going to get into a discussion about what I don't like about it, but because I'm your authority figure, we're not going to go down that route just because I don't want you to do it. So you can do this part of the blog, which is good, but this part, which I don't like very much, you're going to get rid of, and we're not going to have a conversation about it. Is that a fair assessment, or is there some other reason why it seems like you were not able to have a collegial conversation with the bishop or your boss about that part of the blog?
I mean, what you just said, I think, is a possible, very straightforward and understandable explanation for it. I mean, that of an exercise in authority and cooperation on the part of a subordinate, where you don't burden the superior with getting into a whole lot of nitty gritty when it's the superior thinks he's made himself perfectly clear about what
Right.
he has in mind and what he doesn't. But in this case, I mean, I would say, for my own defense, I mean, it's a little bit different because we're talking about, I mean, the institution is itself based on the credibility of what we say, and the credibility of what we say is in question here, and that's what these posts were about and trying to deal with. Um, and and he's not quite my boss in that same way, since we're all servants of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's what we're really supposed to be giving to people, And I was trying to give it and give it in a way that made sense to me, that from my point of view was consistent.
Right. Okay. Now, somewhere in this timeline, Bishop Knestout had to write a statement because he was the secretary for Cardinal McCarrick, and maybe he wasn't even a cardinal at the time. He might have been, I don't know what maybe was the archbishop or something. But Bishop Knestout was a secretary for McCarrick for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and he put a statement out, which I remember reading in the Catholic Virginian.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to suppose anything, but is there any other reason why you would believe that Bishop Knestout would not want you challenging the church in the way that they handled the sexual abuse scandals?
Right. Okay. I appreciate what you're saying. Uh, that when he made that statement, I think it was August 1st, 2018, and
Okay.
McCarrick was a cardinal because McCarrick became a cardinal just weeks after he came to Washington. So
Okay.
pretty much the whole time as Archbishop of Washington, he was cardinal. Uh, and it was a very delicately worded statement that Bishop Nesta put out there on August 1st, 2018. I mean, you could speak for yourself. I'd be interested to hear what you had to say about this. I know in our parishes, it surprised a lot of people in this way, namely, why are you saying this now? Who asked you to say this? It was
Right.
a defense prior to an accusation, which seemed strange, and it also was it could be parsed. It was clearly written in a way that was lawyerly, where there were huge
Right.
holes in what he wasn't saying and what he might have known
Right.
that he wasn't even getting into.
Right.
Um,
Well,
so
my perspective was I was in HR for 26 years with Allstate, and
mhm,
almost every day I dealt with lawyers,
mhm,
and I understand how you can not tell the truth without lying. I guess
mhm,
that's the best way I can say it.
right,
But everything I read these days is written like that. So it
right,
was when I read it up until the point that I got involved in your situation. I just thought, this is a CYA kind of letter, cover your butt kind of letter
mhm,
that somebody's going to ask me the question and I'm going to be able to say, well, here's the statement. Just go read the statement. I'm not going to talk to you about it,
right,
which is kind of the way things are done these days. So
right, sure,
I just wanted to make sure that when you started writing the blog, your I want to know where your heart was, okay? Because I think one of the things that you could be criticized about is the fact that as soon as you started doing that, you were doing it for several different reasons. The first reason was your parishioners were talking about it, and
mhm,
you were trying to answer some questions that were coming to you in a way that everybody could understand it. And for my personal belief, I think that's the way we do things. I think you live in the truth. You just say, here's what happened. This is what we know. Let's have a discussion about it, and I'll help you deal with it. Um,
mhm,
but I want to make sure that there was in no way anything vindictive towards Bishop Knestout or the hierarchy, other than the fact that it appears a lot of people knew what was going on and never really stepped up and said, okay, we need to stop this, and these people need to go, or we have to go talk to the people who were abused or whatever. I'm just trying to clear up the fact that Bishop Nesta was involved in this thing, but that was not the reason that your blog was written. Your blog was written for the parishioners that you were dealing with.
sure. No, I appreciate what you're saying, and I mean, I can't absolve myself of anger towards certain prelates over the course of the past couple of years that I certainly have felt,
Mhm.
at that point in time, I felt a great deal of anger toward Cardinal Donald Wuerl, and to this day still
Right.
do. Um,
And he was
because
the replacement for McCarrick.
correct, right, yeah, who has become by document. It's a documented fact that he knew about McCarrick having taken advantage of seminarians, abused his authority over them before Wuerl even became the Archbishop of Washington. He was aware of this,
Right.
uh, and that even through 2018 and then into early 2019, he was misleading the public about that. And one of the victim who he knew about came forward, came to him, tried to get him to admit the truth to him, and they could have a conversation because this man is a loyal son of the church himself. Robert Siolek is his name, and he wanted to make peace with Donald Worrell, even though he didn't understand what Donald Worrell was saying publicly about what he knew about McCarrick. When he sealed the victim, whose settlement document Donald Worrell had seen, knew that what Worrell was saying wasn't true. He went to Worrell himself, tried to have a straightforward conversation with him, and Worrell wouldn't even be straight with him, and then wouldn't be straight with the Washington Post about him when asked about his meeting with him.
Right.
So Siolek had to throw up his hands and say, "This man hardly. I don't understand why he can't just tell the truth about all this." And that's where things stand as far as where Donald Worrell is, as far as living in the truth of what he knew about McCarrick and when. So I mean, and in August 2018, I mean, to give myself a little bit of credit, I mean, I was angry, but Donald Worrell was the Archbishop of Washington, whose people had just learned that their previous archbishop, the clergy and the people had just learned that their previous archbishop was a dangerous predator, a criminal fleeing justice from the day that he showed up. And instead of focusing on that, Donald Worrell was completely consumed with focusing on himself because his credibility had been thrown into question by the Pennsylvania grand jury report. So instead of really shepherding anybody, he went into corporate defense mode, and that really made me angry. But I mean, in all honesty, I mean, people and parishioners will bear me out on this. I mean, numerous parishioners came to me after that Knestout statement of August 1st, 2018 about what he didn't know about McCarrick, saying, "Don't you think he knew something? You're the one who was there among us," because I was a priest of Washington at that time. "Don't you think that he's not telling the truth?" And my answer always was, I don't know. It's conceivably possible because to this day I think it is probable that McCarrick never abused anybody as Archbishop of Washington. I don't think that happened. I think there's a couple people he thought about grooming, but then
that
he
was
didn't.
after 2013, I think. Is that right?
Well, no, actually, he came to Washington in December of 2000.
Yeah,
So,
but you're saying he probably didn't abuse any, or the supposition is he didn't abuse anybody after he became Archbishop of Washington, which was
right.
2013.
No, year 2000.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. Yeah. All his crimes had been done before
Or
then.
prior to
Yeah.
that, okay.
Right. Yeah.
But
But we don't know that for a fact. But I mean, at that
right,
time, I thought that was likely. It seemed likely to me because I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know of anybody who'd been abused by him. Like I said, I saw him trying to groom a couple guys. Looking back, I see that's what it was. But I don't think that ever went anywhere. Uh, I mean, I don't know. But that's what I
right,
was saying to people was it is conceivably possible that Bishop Barry Nestow really didn't know anything about this. We don't have any evidence to support the idea that he did. So
right,
what's the point in speculating about that when there's other people? It was right around that time that the Vigano memo was released. So Vigano was where he was revealing things that he knew and had known for some time about
right.
McCarrick and the other people who had known, and that all needed to be sorted out pretty carefully. And none of that touched Barry Nestow directly at all. So I
Right.
mean, I can say I felt no anger towards Barry Nestow at all. I mean, we had been very friendly when he arrived in Richmond because we joked with each other about how he was following me because we knew each other from Washington. I'd been down here for 7 years. Here he was. Um, so there was, from my point of view, we didn't have any issues personally. He and I. Um,
Well, and maybe we don't even speculate on why he disliked some of the posts that you put on the blog, although you were attacking the hierarchy of the
right,
church and some
right,
of the failings of the hierarchy, which never makes leadership happy.
right,
Okay,
right.
from my corporate experience, you don't, if
Yeah,
you're going to say something bad about one of the people that are above your head, you're probably going to be called into somebody's office to be told, you don't want to say that. Whether it's true or not doesn't really matter. You just don't want to say that because the chain of command and breaking down the unity or whatever other language you want to use.
right.
Um, okay, so we're at the point now where